Respond to her hug like a Stoic. Make her feel deeply seen. Stoic bloom. What if a hug wasn't just a gesture, but a question? One that asks, can you really see me beyond the surface? Why do some men deepen emotional connection with a single embrace, while others, without even knowing, quietly close the door? And most importantly, how you respond to her hug reveals more about your emotional strength than any words ever could. This isn't about learning a trick. It's about remembering a truth, that presence, not performance, is what makes her feel truly seen. Part 1, the language of the hug. There is a moment, brief, subtle, almost invisible, when two bodies approach each other, not in haste, but in quiet recognition. A moment before contact when breath slows, attention sharpens, and something unspoken hangs in the air. This is where the hug begins, not in arms, but in awareness. A hug is often mistaken as just a social formality or a polite hello. But beneath the surface, it's something far more profound. A nonverbal dialogue, a dance of presence, pressure, and energy. Her arms reaching for you are not just physical movement. They are an invitation, a test, a doorway. She's not just embracing your body, she's feeling out your emotional temperature. The question behind that hug is rarely spoken, but always felt. Are you truly here with me? Not just physically, but emotionally. Can you meet her softness without flinching? Can you breathe into the moment without rushing to the next? Responding to a hug well isn't about what you do with your hands. It's about what you do with your attention, your breath, your stillness. Because here's the truth, she will notice if your body stiffens, if your breath shortens, if your presence disappears into your head. She'll notice if you pull away too soon or hold on too long. And while she might not call it out with words, her body will register it. Her trust will adjust accordingly. This isn't about becoming someone else. It's about returning to something you've always had, but may have forgotten. The ability to connect, not through control, but through calm, not through charm, but through clarity. If you're already wondering whether you've been hugging like a Stoic or like a stiff board from IKEA, don't worry, we've all been there. Share this video with a friend who thinks hugs are just polite gestures, and subscribe to Stoic Bloom, where we don't fix you, we guide you back to what's real. And hey, leave a comment if this made you rethink a moment you've brushed off. You're not alone, you're just waking up. Stoic Bloom, where presence speaks louder than performance. Part 2, the psychological weight of touch. She doesn't just touch you, she listens with her body. The warmth of her hug, the pressure of her arms, the way she holds you for a second longer than usual. These aren't accidents. They are signals, subtle, emotional signals looking for safety, resonance, reflection. And whether you realize it or not, you are answering her with every breath, every heartbeat, every millisecond of tension or presence you offer in return. Too many men think a hug is just a pit stop before intimacy or a gesture to get through. But to her, it's a scanner, a live reading of your emotional availability, of whether you're grounded or guarded, of whether you're seeing her or just checking off a box on your way to something more self-serving. What she's really asking when she steps into your space is this: can you hold what I'm not saying? It's not the hug that moves her, it's how you hold space within it. Whether your presence says you're safe here or I don't know what to do with this, she senses the difference immediately. Not intellectually, but through her nervous system. Her body speaks the language of nuance, and she hopes, prays, that yours can reply in kind. And it's not about being romantic. It's about being real. Stoic, not stoic-faced. Calm, not cold. Emotionally awake without being emotionally performative. You don't need to speak, but you do need to respond with stillness, with steadiness, with the kind of quiet confidence that doesn't need to dominate the moment, but honors it. Because when you treat a hug like a doorway instead of a duty, something shifts. She leans in, not just physically, but emotionally. She lets herself be held, not because you demand it, but because you earn it with your presence. And in that presence, even silence becomes a sanctuary. Stoic bloom, because a steady heart speaks louder than eager hands. Part 3, the hidden emotional test. She's not testing your strength. She's testing your presence. When she leans in for a hug, it's not about physical comfort. It's an unspoken inquiry into your emotional capacity. Without saying a word, her body is asking, "Are you here? Will you flinch if I soften? Can you hold me without trying to fix, chase, or control me?" This is the emotional test most men don't even realize they're failing because they're so focused on outcomes, what happens next, what it means, what she's thinking. They miss what's happening right now. They fidget. They disconnect. They retreat inward just when she's opening up. But a man rooted in presence, a stoic in the truest sense, doesn't rush to interpret or impress. He stays, not stoic as in unfeeling, stoic as in unwavering, calm like a mountain, not cold like a wall. She's not looking for a performance. She's sensing your stillness. And if she feels it, truly feels it, something in her nervous system finally exhales. Because most women are used to being touched without being understood, desired without being respected, heard without being listened to. And so when you show up differently, not with loud gestures, but with grounded attention, you shift the entire emotional landscape. She realizes this isn't a man trying to pass her test. This is a man who already passed his own. And that's the paradox. The less you try to win her over, the more you create the safety that allows her to come closer. Because emotional presence isn't a performance. It's the absence of pretense. Gentlemen, if you've ever been confused why a hug felt good, but she pulled away emotionally later, it might be because she was testing for depth, and all you offered was density. Don't worry, we've all been there. And now we move forward. Subscribe to Stoic Bloom if you're done winging it and ready to understand connection from the inside out. Share this video with that one friend who thinks emotional intelligence is just a vibe. And leave a comment if you've ever felt a shift in her energy mid-hug and didn't know why. You might just be waking up. Stoic Bloom, where emotional presence is the new power move. Part 4, presence over performance. She doesn't need you to impress her. She needs to feel you are with her. In that brief and silent space where arms wrap around each other, what matters most is not technique. It's truth, not how long the hug lasts or how strong your grip is, but whether you're actually there, not just in body, but in attention, intention, and emotional energy. Presence is not about perfection. It's about honesty. It's about being still enough inside yourself that another person can rest in your energy without fear of being misunderstood, judged, or dismissed. Most men, when touched emotionally, try to respond with performance, a stronger squeeze, a witty comment, a flirtatious smirk. But those are masks, and she feels it. When she initiates a hug and you immediately start thinking about what it means, what to do next, or how to escalate it, you've already left the moment. Your mind is somewhere else. And trust me, she notices. She feels the disconnection, even if your arms are still around her. But when you're fully present, when you drop into your body, slow your breath, quiet your thoughts, your stillness becomes a sanctuary. She feels your energy settle. She senses your acceptance without effort. And that, more than any charm or cleverness, invites her to open. This kind of presence doesn't just happen. It's practiced. It's the fruit of a man who sat with his own discomforts, who no longer fears silence, who no longer needs to earn closeness with noise. She doesn't want to show. She wants to be held without having to hold herself together. And when you offer that, not just in posture but in being, you become unforgettable. Not because you performed well, but because you disappeared into the moment and allowed her to be fully there too. Stoic bloom, because the strongest embrace is one that lets go of ego. Part 5, decoding different types of hugs. Not all hugs are created equal, and more importantly, not all hugs mean the same thing. Every variation in pressure, duration, body alignment, or timing is a silent message. If you learn to feel them, not just analyze them, you begin to read her not with logic, but with presence. Like a Stoic who doesn't need to predict the future, but simply responds rightly to the moment. There's the polite hug, light, brief, 2 pats on the back. It says, I acknowledge you, but I'm not entering emotionally. She uses it when boundaries need to be clear. Then the friendly hug, warmer, maybe a second longer, with relaxed arms. This says, you matter to me. I feel safe around you. Still platonic, but not cold. Then there's the lingering hug, slower release, soft breathing. Maybe her fingers curl slightly around you. It doesn't shout desire, it whispers trust. She stays in your presence because it feels less like contact and more like connection. And then there's the intimate hug. Forehead rested on chest, silence stretching into a shared breath. This is the rare one. Vulnerability lives here. If she gives you this, she's handing you the key to her emotional space. Handle it with reverence, not strategy. Each hug is not just a moment, it's a map. And your ability to read that map determines whether the road leads deeper or ends quietly at a dead end. But remember, this isn't about decoding for control. It's about attunement. You're not playing chess, you're listening to music. Her hug is the melody, your stillness, the harmony. If this made you realize you've been hugging like an airport security checkpoint, fast, awkward, and emotionally confusing, don't panic. You're in good company. Subscribe to Stoic Bloom, where we guide you through emotional fluency without turning you into a yoga-scented philosopher. And hey, share this with that one friend who hugs like he's trying to win a wrestling match. He needs us. We accept him. Gently. Stoic Bloom. Because a good hug speaks, but a great one listens. Part 6, the inner work required. Before you can hold her well, you must learn how to hold yourself. Most men walk into a hug carrying invisible armor, crafted from past rejections, silent childhoods, unspoken expectations. They don't mean to bring it, but it's there. The stiffness, the hesitation, the distracted gaze, and she feels it. Not as aggression, but as absence, as disconnection masquerading as politeness. You see, presence isn't something you perform, it's something you become. But you cannot become present to her until you have learned to stay with yourself, especially when things feel uncertain, slow, or emotionally charged. This is the inner work. It begins by noticing your own reflexes. Do you freeze when she steps close? Do you rush the moment, seeking control instead of contact? Do you mentally retreat to avoid being overwhelmed? These aren't failures. They're clues. Emotional breadcrumbs tracing back to where you abandoned proceedings in exchange for protection. The Stoics understood this deeply. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Know where you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions than your own soul." But only if you learn to face it, to stop flinching at your own depth. So when she offers you that moment, a quiet, vulnerable hug, she's not just asking for your arms. She's asking, have you met your own emotions yet? Or are you still trying to bypass them through charm, strength, or silence? Because a man who has befriended his own discomfort becomes a man who can welcome hers, without needing to fix it, name it, or run from it. And the beauty, once you do the work, you don't have to prove anything anymore. Your calm says it for you. Your breath says it. Your grounded body says it. The hug becomes more than an action. It becomes a reflection of your inner steadiness. Stoic bloom, because before you hold her, you must hold your own storm. Part 7. The dance of breath and body. A hug at its core is not choreography. It's a dialogue between nervous systems, between silences, between breaths. She steps in slowly. You feel the warmth before you feel the weight. Her hands find your back. Maybe she exhales first. Maybe she waits for you to set the rhythm. And in that moment, whether you realize it or not, she's not only listening to your arms, she's listening to your entire body. Do you stiffen as if unsure of what this moment demands? Do you breathe shallowly or not at all, as if bracing for a test you weren't prepared to take? Or do you soften? Do you let her feel the calm beneath your ribs? The steady, grounded breath of a man not trying to escape the closeness? Because here's the truth. Your breath is the music, and she tunes into it more than you know. If you breathe deeply, slowly, fully, you send a signal, not a verbal one, but a visceral one. You're safe here. You don't have to rush. I'm not somewhere else. I'm with you. And when that message lands, her body relaxes. Her walls begin to lower, not because you pushed, but because you invited. This is the unspoken elegance of emotional leadership. It's not about dominance, it's about presence that leads by example. She mirrors your ease or your tension. She mirrors your patience or your panic. And so the hug becomes a dance, not of steps, but of stillness, not of pressure, but of permission. To breathe together is to connect beyond skin. It's to say, I'm not performing for you, I'm here with you. If reading this made you sit up straighter and start checking whether you're currently breathing through your chest or your diaphragm, welcome. You're among friends. Subscribe to Stoic Bloom if you believe your nervous system deserves a seat at the table. And send this video to that one friend who hugs like he's apologizing with his spine. Help him, but gently. Stoic Bloom, because breath isn't just life, it's connection. Part 8. Confidence in stillness. Stillness is not the absence of action. It is the presence of certainty. In a world where men are taught to prove, pursue, and perform, stillness can feel unfamiliar, almost unnatural. But to her, stillness isn't boring. It's reassuring. It signals something rare. A man who is at home in himself and thus safe to invite into her emotional world. Because here's the truth, when she hugs you, she's listening for the tremors. Not in your voice, but in your body. She's attuned to the energy behind your touch. And what calms her nervous system more than any clever line or seductive move is this: a man who is unshaken by closeness. She doesn't want you frozen. She wants you steady. Not gripping, not grabbing, just grounded. Not performing warmth, but embodying it. That kind of confidence doesn't shout. It settles. It doesn't overwhelm. It allows. And when your stillness meets her vulnerability, something shifts. She begins to feel not only seen, but safe. The Stoics knew this power. As Epictetus reminded us, no man is free who is not master of himself. When you master your need to rush, to impress, or to protect yourself from emotional weight, you become a rare presence. One who doesn't just hold space, but becomes the space. And this is where true attraction deepens, not from the outside in, but from the inside out. When you offer her the stability of your inner quiet, you stop being just another man she hugged. You become the one her body remembers. Because in your stillness, she found a mirror for the calm she's always craved. Confidence, then, is not loud. It's low frequency, subtle, rooted, like a tree that doesn't sway for passing winds, yet welcomes shade seekers with open arms. Stoic bloom, because confidence doesn't move louder, it moves deeper. Part 9, Beyond the Hug, Emotional Patterns. The hug is not the beginning, it's a continuation of patterns she's been living long before she met you. When she wraps her arms around you, she's not just feeling for warmth. She's subconsciously scanning for familiarity. Not comfort, familiarity. Her nervous system is asking, does this feel like home? Even if home was unpredictable, inconsistent, or quietly painful. Because we all carry emotional blueprints, drawn in childhood, reinforced in past relationships. Some of us were held too tightly, others not at all. Some learned that love means performance. Others learned that closeness always comes with withdrawal. So what she feels in your hug might not just be about you. It might be about the version of you that matches her unconscious memory of how connection works. This is where emotional intelligence meets stoic awareness. Because if you're not conscious of her patterns and yours, you'll simply reenact them. You'll hold too long because you fear being abandoned, or you'll pull away too soon because intimacy feels unsafe. You'll respond not to her, but to your history, and so will she. The man who recognizes this doesn't shame himself. He doesn't overanalyze either. He simply observes. He breathes into the discomfort. He asks, is this reaction about this moment or about an old moment that never got resolved? That is the Stoic art of presence, not suppression, but discernment, feeling what arises without being enslaved by it. So when she hugs you and lingers longer than expected, or tenses just before she pulls you close, it's not a mistake, it's information. And your job is not to decode it like a puzzle, but to receive it like a signal. To become the man who doesn't panic at emotional charge, but holds it like a lantern in the dark. If this made you realize you've been hugging women while unknowingly reenacting unresolved plot lines from your early 2000s relationships, welcome to the club. Subscribe to Stoic Bloom, where we untangle the emotional spaghetti one conscious moment at a time. And send this video to the friend who says she's just too emotional, without realizing he's hugging people like a scared turtle. We're not mocking, okay, we're gently encouraging. Stoic Bloom, because emotional patterns don't lie, but presence rewrites them. Part 10, the Stoic masculine presence. There is a kind of masculinity that doesn't rush to lead, but naturally invites others to follow. It's not loud. It doesn't arrive with a spotlight. It doesn't try to dominate space or dictate outcomes. It simply is, rooted, receptive, deep like a river, not still from fear, but from depth. That is Stoic masculine presence. It's the kind of presence that enters a room and instantly changes the air, not through volume, but through weight, not heaviness, but gravity. A centeredness that says without words, I am not here to perform. I am here to meet the moment as it is. When she hugs you, what she's really feeling is whether you live in that center or if you're secretly leaning, reaching, compensating. If your calm is real or a disguise for chaos barely contained. Because Stoicism isn't about repression. It's about readiness. It's not emotional coldness. It's emotional clarity. It's the strength to hold space for another person's vulnerability without collapsing into it or trying to fix it. It's what allows a man to be soft in his touch, yet solid in his boundaries. Warm in his eyes, yet unmoved by neediness. This kind of presence doesn't crave control. It radiates safety, and women feel it instantly. They might not articulate it, but they sense when a man is trying to earn love versus when he is offering wholeness. The former seeks approval, the latter offers sanctuary. You become that kind of man not by learning new moves, but by unlearning the old reflexes that come from fear, ego, and performance. You become him by practicing stillness in your own storms, by choosing awareness over reaction, by tending to your own inner architecture so you can remain whole when she needs to lean. When you reach this presence, hugs no longer feel like performance. They become extensions of your philosophy, your groundedness made physical. Your stillness made tangible. You're not holding her to keep her. You're holding her because you no longer fear losing yourself. Stoic bloom. Because true presence doesn't pull, it anchors. Part 11. Transformation through intimacy. Intimacy doesn't begin with touch. It begins with truth. And when you meet someone in that space, unfiltered, unguarded, unperformed, something inside both of you shifts. Something softens, not because you forced it, but because you stopped resisting it. That's the transformation. When you learn to embrace intimacy without anxiety, without rushing to fill the silence or earn the moment, your nervous system rewires itself. You stop viewing closeness as a currency to trade for approval. You stop seeing a hug as something to get right. Instead, it becomes a mirror showing you who you are when nothing else is performing. That's the quiet power of Stoic presence. You don't chase connection. You cultivate conditions where connection naturally lands. And because you're no longer focused on outcomes, intimacy deepens, not from effort, but from ease. You become the man who isn't afraid of emotional proximity. You don't flinch when someone leans in. You don't fumble when the moment calls for stillness. You meet it fully, without needing to manage or manipulate it. And that steadiness changes everything. Because in a world of men who retreat from depth or overcompensate for it, your calm becomes magnetic. Not flashy, not needy, just undeniably trustworthy. And here's the secret most never hear. The deeper you go with yourself, the safer you become for others. And the safer you become, the more intimacy stops being scary and starts becoming transformational. If you've ever panicked mid-hug because you didn't know what it meant, good news, it meant you were still learning. Even better news, you still are. Subscribe to Stoic Bloom if you're ready to move from anxious chemistry to grounded connection. Share this video with the friend who Googles, "How long should I hug her?" and ends up more confused. We get it. We've been him. Let's evolve together. Stoic Bloom. Because real intimacy isn't given. It's allowed. Part 12. Hug as a mirror. Hug is never just about the other person. It's also about who you become in the moment of holding and being held. It reflects not just your affection, but your awareness. It shows her and you, whether you're present or pretending, whether you're whole or hoping to be completed. That's the paradox of intimacy. It reveals you, without asking, without warning. If your hug carries anxiety, she'll feel the tension behind your arms. If it's rushed, she'll feel the part of you that doesn't yet know how to rest in closeness. If it's overly firm, she may sense the boy inside still trying to prove strength. But if your hug is quiet, steady, unhurried, that tells her something deeper. This man has made peace with his own silence. Because the body doesn't lie. Your embrace becomes a mirror of your interior life. She's not just receiving your touch. She's receiving your emotional atmosphere. Your relationship with vulnerability, your relationship with yourself. And here's where the deeper work begins. When you stop using the hug to win her or signal interest, and instead use it to reflect congruence, you stop seeking validation. You start creating resonance. As Epictetus once taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. The same applies here. The hug is not the event. You are the event. How you respond reveals your philosophy more than your words ever could. So the next time you're in her arms, ask not, "How do I make this feel right?" Ask instead, "What is this hug showing me about who I am when I'm not performing?" If you can meet that question honestly, you won't need to act present. You'll become presence itself. Stoic Bloom. Because your embrace reveals your essence. Final reflection and stoic. In every hug, there lies an invitation not to perform, but to return to presence. To return to self, to return to the calm strength of a man who no longer fears softness, who no longer escapes stillness. This entire journey has not been about learning new gestures. It's about unlearning the false narratives that taught us closeness was weakness.